Drawing curves with the pen tool is the most difficult part. This is what you will need to practice a lot. But throughout this course, I am going to give you several ways to practice this. First, we need to understand how it works, and also we need to talk about the definitions or the names associated with the parts of path. So first of all, we have two types of anchor points. We have the smooth point and the corner point. Whenever we draw with only straight lines, we will have corner points. And whenever we draw curved lines, we will have these smooth points. Now, let me just show you how to draw, first of all, a smooth point. First, you just need to click. And then if you click and drag, you can create a smooth point, which already has these two handles. This is called, by the way, direction handle. And at the end, we have the direction point. The selected anchor point is always black, and the unselected anchor point is always white or empty. Between two anchor points, we have a path segment. So now if I click again, you can see we have a nice curve here, or two path segments, which are both curved. And then now, because there's no smooth point here at the end, I just simply clicked, and if I click again, that will be a straight line. So again, if I click and drag, I am creating a smooth point, which has to both sides, on the right and on the left as well, direction handles, which means I am going to have curved lines or path segments on both sides. So I can click again, and then you can see we have two curved path segments. If I want to close this shape, I can just simply click on the first point. So that's how you can use smooth points and corner points in your drawing. And if you use the path selection tool, you can see all these anchor points. But to be able to see exactly what happens on them, whether they are a corner point or a smooth point, you need to select them with the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow. So with that one, I can select each and separate points and see that this one is a smooth point with direction handles. This one is just a corner point, such as this one as well. And then I can select this one and I can see again this is a smooth point. Then another corner point and corner point. So drawing curves is not a mystery, it's quite simple to draw them, but to control them in a way that you need them is quite difficult. First of all, let me show you why. If I want to draw just a simple curve such as that one on the top, I can do it several ways. I can just simply click and then click here on the other side, because let's just say I want to have a curve. But this curve doesn't look the same as that one on the top. If I want to do the same, I need to go back and first of all start with click and dragging already. So already my first point is a smooth point. And I can, by the way, hold down shift whenever I draw these handle points or the direction handles. So I have the first anchor point, which is already a smooth point. Then I click on the top of my curve. I hold down shift once again to have these direction handles going horizontal now. And then I can click here on the right, try to be symmetrical as well, and drag that point down as well. So you can see already, just to create something similar to that one on the top, I had to create 3 smooth points. And I had to also use keyboard shortcut, the shift, while I was drawing the direction handles to make it look the same. So let me just do the same thing here now the other way. I click, hold down shift, drag out, and then I click, hold down shift, and drag out until I see the curve. I can do again. Click, hold down shift, drag, and then click, hold down shift, and drag. So after all, it's not that difficult. You just need to get used to how to draw specific curves. So this style of curve, I was trying to do symmetrical curves, and for that I had to use always smooth points. Now what happens if I want to draw little waves? Let me just move this curve here on the side, and I'm going to select the pen tool again, and let's just say I would like to draw waves, like water. So I will click, and I'm going to click and drag to create one side of the wave, And then if I click and drag here, it will always create this rounded edge here. I would like to have a corner point there and only have the curve here on the left. So how can I do that? Let me try that again. Here I would like to have a curve, or probably here also I would like to have a corner point. So I am going to alt click on this point, alt click, and then I click and drag to create a curve after a corner point. And here on the top again, I'm going to alt click on this point to convert it into a corner point from a smooth point. That will keep the original curve, and my next curve next point can again be a smooth point. But as you can see, these two curves, between the two curves, I have actually a corner point. So let me just do this again. I am going to alt click on this point to create a corner point. Then I click and drag. There's a curve. Alt click again, and then I can click and drag to draw another line. So in between two curves, I have a corner point. But if I use my direct selection tool and click on that corner point, I still have a handle which will handle this part. So one side is a curve, and with that handle I can always edit that. The same applies to this corner point, and I can edit it. If I select this point here, which is a smooth point with two direction handles, I can always move them together so they will follow each other. Or if I hold down Alt or Option, I can break them apart or separate them and then create something completely different. So you can see that whenever you draw curves, it is very important to understand not only the curves themselves, but also these handles, because the handles will control the curves and the shape of the curves. So how can I really predict what type of handle length and direction do I need for my curves? That's very essential to understand. So whenever we draw, let me just show you this again. Whenever we draw, we have this rubber band feature which helps us to predict what's going to happen, because I am going to draw here the handles which will define my actual path segment, the curve. But then we have the rubber band which defines or shows us or gives us a preview of the next path segment. If we don't have that rubber band option on, then we just simply see the cursor. That makes it quite difficult. So it already helps us, especially for anyone who's completely new to the pen tool, to have the rubber band feature on. That's like a little hint or help that what's going to happen next. So I can always click and drag and then draw the next path segment. But this part, the click and drag, whenever we create the handles, is a very essential point, because the direction and the length of these handles will define a lot of things. So let me just show you an image. I'm going to go to Bridge and open up an image. This one with the little ghost. And let's just say I would like to draw over this image. So I have the same setup. I'm just increase my stroke size a little bit. And let me just try to draw around this shape. I'm going to start from here on the top. So the top of the head of the ghost. And then I will try to create the first curve. I click and drag, and I try to align the curve to the outline of the ghost. Now, when I let go, you can see we have two handles. The first one defines the first curve, and the second handle will define the next curve. So this path segment will always follow this handle. So I have to put down my next anchor point somewhere here to be able to have a nice smooth line, because basically what these handles do is also to make sure that we have nice and smooth curves. These are, by the way, called Bezier curves. Bezier was a French mathematician, and these curves are named after him. So if I click here again and I create my next handles, they will help me to draw my next curve. So I can again click, and again I can drag, click and drag. Now in this case I will probably go back and zoom a bit closer as well, so I can see what happens here. I am going to probably click and drag there on the top. Wherever the curve changes, or wherever these lines turn is the best place to put a corner point. As you can see, again, I click here where it turns, and then I just click and drag, and always the point, the direction point, should be leading to our next curve. That's the way you should think about it. You need to lead it to the direction of the next curve segment. So I can click and drag it in the direction of the next part. Then once again here I can click and drag in the direction of the next path segment. I can zoom out a bit and click and drag, and then I can finish by click and drag. So something like that. I managed to draw around it, and there's only one problem here. I can see one corner point here. So let me just select it with the direct selection tool, and we can see that here by accident I didn't create a smooth point. So this is a corner point. Remember, with the pen tool, if you hold down Alt, you can turn something into a smooth point. So with that one we can nicely smoothen this out. And if I want to, I can always move these points around with the direct selection tool. So I can select a point, move it around. I can move the handles around as well to align the curvature to the shape itself. And by the way, it's good to remember that whenever you have the pen tool selected, by holding down Command or Control on PC, you can also temporarily access the direct selection tool or the path selection tool, whichever was selected the last time. So I can easily adjust things around with that direct selection tool. So this is a little exercise for you that you can practice with, and try to minimize the number of anchor points. It's very important. If you look at my example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And it's completely symmetrical as well. I mean, I try to be symmetrical with these points because that's the easiest way to draw, to use the least amount of anchor points. If you have a lot of anchor points, it will be very complicated to adjust them, and you will probably have more like corner points by accident, which you have to smoothen out. So remember this is like a rule of thumb. Try to always minimize the number of your anchor points. Let me switch back to the previous example, and I'm going to select these paths and I'm going to delete them. And I would like to just show you once again how to think whenever you create these handles. So if I click and then I click and drag, I already create an indication and direction for my next path segment. So the next curve will go that direction. If I click and drag this direction, my next curve will be able to go this direction. And the longer I create the handle points, the bigger curve I can create the next time, or the longer curve. So for example, if I click and drag and just create a small handles or short handles, then my curve will be much faster turning than if I click and create a very long handle point, then my curve can be much longer. And if you still find it very confusing and difficult to draw with the pen tool and creating curves, let me just show you one more help which you can use, and that is under the View menu. Under Show, we have the option called Grid. I'm going to select this one, and with the grid, we actually have an option that can help us a lot by creating curves. You also need to make sure that you have the snap feature turned on and the snap to grid as well turned on. If you want to change how the grid looks, you can also find that under the preferences, and you choose guides, grids and slices, and here you can change the grid line and the subdivisions and also the measurement for them. So we can increase the subdivisions, for example, to 5. If I click on OK, we can try and practice with these grids now. So because the pen tool will snap to these points, I can easily create curves like this. I click here and drag it out, and using the handles, I drag the handles out exactly 5 squares. So I have 5 squares up and to the right size for my curve, and also 5 squares for my handles. That means if I click here on the right, it will be a nice and symmetrical curve. I can even create a nice ellipse by clicking here, drag it out, and I can click here again, and I created a perfect circle. If we turn off the grid, there's a keyboard shortcut for it, which I customize myself, but you can always go to show and turn the grid off. So that's what I'm doing. You can see there's our circle, and I can show the grid once again. So if you find it difficult and confusing to use the pen tool whenever you draw curves, and if you want to be precise with them, you can always use this feature. So together with the rubber band and the grid turned on, you can be much more accurate and know exactly what's happening whenever you draw curves. So that's all I wanted to show you in this video about drawing curves. And I know it's a lot to take in, but once you learn to use it properly, it will be very rewarding and it will help you a lot in graphic design. In the next video, we are going to start drawing more complicated shapes, and also we are going to start using Illustrator. Now that we have a basic understanding in Photoshop, we will also start to compare Photoshop and Illustrator, and also InDesign, how the pen tool changes a little bit between these applications, and how can we make the most of the pen tool in each of these applications.